Hey everyone, get ready to dive into a chilling true story that will make you question everything you believe about the supernatural. In today's video, we're exploring the horrors experienced in a place known as the Farm of the Dead, a site built on an ancient cemetery, a stage for macabre rituals, and haunted by entities that do not rest in peace. If you love horror stories based on real events with accounts of possession, apparitions, and unexplained paranormal activity, you're in the right place. This first-person account will take you into a spiral of fear and madness where the screams of the dead echo in the darkness and shadows come to life. Will our narrator escape the evil forces that inhabit this cursed farm? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new videos. And if you've ever had a paranormal experience, share your testimony in the comments below. Your story could be the next one featured here. The city was suffocating me. The noise, the pollution, the crowds, it was all too much. I needed a break, a place to reconnect with myself. That's how the Whispering Winds farm came into my life. A find on a rural real estate website, the description spoke of a peaceful retreat, perfect for those seeking peace and contact with nature. The photos showed an old but charming house surrounded by green fields, a place where, according to the ad, the only sound you'll hear is the singing of birds and the rustling of leaves in the wind. Ironically, it was the silence that first started to frighten me. The price was low, too low. But I was desperate for a change. I sold my tiny apartment, packed my few belongings into a moving truck and set off, full of hope and a good dose of naivety. The farm was even more isolated than I imagined. Miles of bumpy dirt roads lined with twisted trees that seemed to scratch the sky with their dry branches. The house itself was imposing, with its stone walls and narrow windows, as if it were watching me. The paint was peeling, giving it an air of neglect that, at the time, I found rustic. At first, it was just a feeling, a discomfort, a constant feeling of being watched, even when I was alone, locked inside the house. I could feel eyes on me all the time. I tried to rationalize, blaming it on the wind howling through the cracks in the windows, the creaking of the old wood, the nocturnal animals. At night, the sounds began, screams, muffled, distant, as if they came from far away, or perhaps from deep within the earth. They sounded like laments, cries for help. I tried to convince myself it was exhaustion, the stress of the move, the isolation. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. Then I found the bones. I wanted to plant a garden, bring some life and color to that place. I was digging near an old apple tree, imagining the flowers that would bloom there. When the shovel hit something hard, I dug carefully, removing the damp, dark earth. First a femur, long, yellowed by time. Then ribs, vertebrae, phalanges, and finally, a skull. A human skull, with empty sockets staring at me, as if I had interrupted a deep and disturbing sleep. They weren't the remains of an animal. They were human. Adults, children. There were many bones, many fragments, scattered everywhere. Horror gripped me, a cold that seeped into my bones, colder than the earth I held in my hands. The farm's library was a claustrophobic room, filled with old, dusty books. There, amidst volumes on agriculture and local history, I found the answers I feared. Whispering Winds Farm had a dark secret, a buried secret, literally. That soil, where I intended to plant flowers, was once a cemetery. Not an ordinary cemetery, organized with tombstones and dates. It was an ancient pagan place, used by settlers who feared or were unaware of Christian rituals. A place where the dead were buried without ceremony, without identification, in shallow graves, often in mass graves, without respect. The records were scarce, fragmented like the bones I found. They spoke of a time of disease, famine, despair, of mass deaths, of piled-up bodies, and of rituals, night rituals, performed under the full moon by families who gathered on that desecrated ground. They came here, at night, to do who knows what. Whispers and chants in an ancient language, offerings left on makeshift stone altars. I found disturbing illustrations in one of the books, hooded figures in a circle, a bonfire in the center, and something indistinct, a dark shape, hovering over them. The whispers started soon after, voices in my ear, calling my name, whispering unintelligible threats, words of hatred and despair. "You don't belong here," they said repeatedly. "Leave. They won't let you stay." I saw things in the shadows, quick movements, dark figures that disappeared when I looked directly. At night, silhouettes appeared in my bedroom window, staring at me with bright, hungry eyes. I heard the drums, low and rhythmic, the chants in an ancient and guttural language, coming from the direction where I found the circle of stones. They still come here, I thought, terrified, the descendants of those families, or perhaps the very entities they invoked. And whatever is here was getting stronger, feeding on my presence, my energy, my fear. The phenomena intensified. Objects moved on their own. I would wake up in the middle of the night to the sound of furniture being dragged, books falling from shelves, doors slamming violently, even without any drafts. The screams became louder, closer, more desperate, more constant and maddening. It was as if the voices of the dead were trying to warn me, or perhaps drive me away, or maybe to take revenge. I could no longer ignore them. They were there, all around me, all the time. Isolation became a prison. I tried to escape, to leave that cursed place. But the car, which worked perfectly when I arrived, now refused to start. The phone, no signal, as if the farm were in a bubble, isolated from the outside world. It was as if something was pulling me back, keeping me trapped there. With them, the entities, the spirits, the demons, whatever they were, would not let me go. Then, they started touching me. At first, it was subtle touches. A cold, invisible hand brushing my arm, a shiver down my spine, a tug on my hair. But soon they became more violent. Deep, red, painful scratches appeared out of nowhere on my skin, as if they had been made by sharp claws. Unexplained bruises bloomed on my body. I was pushed by invisible hands, knocked down, dragged across the floor. The mirror became my enemy. I barely recognized myself. My reflection was distorted, pale, my eyes sunken and dark, filled with a terror I couldn't hide. Once I saw my reflection smile, a wide, cruel smile that wasn't mine. It was as if something was infiltrating me, possessing me, transforming me into something else. The nights were a torment. I was chased through the dark corridors of the house by figures that moved too fast to be seen clearly. Knives flew towards me, coming from all directions as if they were being thrown by invisible hands. One of them struck my shoulder. The pain was excruciating, the warm blood running down my arm. I was cornered, being hunted like an animal. They were playing with me, terrorizing me, weakening me, like a cat playing with a mouse before killing it. I needed to find a way out. An explanation, a way to fight against it, before it was too late. Back in the dusty library, I found my last hope. An old book with yellowed and brittle pages, detailed banishment rituals, symbols, words of power, precise instructions. It was a chance, a desperate chance amidst the madness that was setting in. But it was all I had. With trembling hands and a racing heart, I drew the circle of protection on the living room floor, using coarse salt as the book instructed. I placed the candles at specific points around the circle, reciting the ancient words in a Latin I barely understood, but which seemed to vibrate in the air with a strange and powerful energy. My voice trembled, faltering at times as I struggled to stay inside the circle, feeling an invisible force pushing me, trying to drag me out of the protected area. The lights in the house flickered frantically, plunging the room into a macabre dance of light and shadow. The temperature dropped abruptly, and a freezing cold seeped into my bones, more intense than any winter I had ever experienced. A putrid odor, like rotting flesh, invaded the air, making my stomach churn. I could feel their presence all around me, an oppressive pressure, a palpable anger. The whispers turned into growls, into roars of fury, and I knew they were approaching, materializing. That's when I saw the thing. Right there in the center of the room, where before there was only emptiness, a form began to solidify. A dark, shapeless figure, like a shadow that had come to life. It was tall, much taller than a man, and its silhouette flickered, as if it were being seen through a thick fog. Its eyes, two intense red embers, burned in the darkness, fixed on me with an ancestral hatred. "You cannot banish us." The voice was a guttural whisper, a sound that seemed to scratch my soul, coming from all directions at once and from nowhere. "This place is ours." Fear threatened to paralyze me, but I continued, forcing the words out of my dry throat. It was my only chance. I needed to finish the ritual. The entity, or whatever it was, advanced, lunging at the salt circle. An invisible barrier seemed to hold it back, but I could feel the pressure, the overwhelming force emanating from that thing. It thrashed, contorted, trying to break through the protection, and I knew the circle wouldn't hold for long. "Go away!" I shouted, my voice hoarse and weak, almost inaudible amid the growls of the entity and the deafening noise that now echoed through the house. "This place is no longer yours." I continued the incantation, feeling my energy draining, my consciousness fading. I was about to faint, to give up, to surrender to the darkness, when the final words of the ritual escaped my lips. "Ego te expello, in nomine lucis et tenebrae, abite in locum vestrum." A blinding flash, an explosion of pure energy, erupted from the salt circle, like a wave of white light that expanded throughout the room, pushing the entity back. The thing let out a piercing shriek, a sharp, agonizing sound that seemed to tear reality itself, a howl of pain and defeat that echoed through every room, making the whole house shake. It thrashed, contorted, as if it were being consumed by invisible flames, and then slowly it began to dissipate. Its dark form was unraveling, disintegrating, like smoke being carried away by a strong wind, until there was nothing left but emptiness. The silence that followed was deafening, a heavy, oppressive silence, as if the air itself was paralyzed. The lights stopped flickering, the temperature returned to normal, and the putrid smell dissipated. I fell to my knees, exhausted, trembling, unable to believe I was still alive. My body ached, my head throbbed, and I felt like I had aged 10 years in a single night. I stayed there on the cold floor for a time that seemed like an eternity, until the first rays of sun began to enter through the dusty windows, bringing with them the promise of a new day. The morning sun bathed the living room in a golden light, revealing the furniture in disarray, the salt circle now broken, and the marks of the battle that had been fought there. I got up with difficulty, my legs weak, my body sore. I looked around at the house now silent and seemingly empty. Everything seemed strangely normal, as if the night before had been just a terrible nightmare. But I knew it hadn't been. I knew what had happened there. I had seen evil, face to face, and somehow I had survived. There were no more screams, no whispers, no moving shadows. The farm was at peace, at least for now, but I knew that peace was fragile, illusory. The darkness was still there, lurking, waiting for a new opportunity to manifest itself. I managed to banish them, I think. But at what cost? And for how long? I gathered the few strengths I had left and left that cursed house. Without looking back, I walked down the dirt road, limping, injured, traumatized. The sun was already high in the sky, but I felt cold, a cold that came from within, that had settled in my soul. I had nowhere to go. I had nothing left, only the clothes on my back and the scars, physical and emotional, from that terrible night. I escaped the farm of the dead, but a part of me will always be there, trapped in that cursed place, haunted by the memories of the screams, the whispers, the darkness. I will never forget what I saw, what I felt, what I faced. The farm stands behind me, sinister and silent under the midday sun, a constant reminder that evil exists and that it can hide in the most unexpected places, waiting to be awakened. And I know somehow that my encounter with the darkness is far from over. The feeling of being watched came back, even though I was miles away. The spirits are still speaking, but now they are whispering again. I know they are still there, somewhere, waiting for me.